again?
Yeah, it's
Oh, okay.
fourth page in.
District improvement.
Keep going.
No, keep
Fifth
going.
page is-
Keep going. We moved the district improvement plan because
Okay,
the
right.
superintendent is not here yet.
This one here, this one.
Yep.
Thank you.
Another comment, Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Again, they've collected an awful lot of data, which takes us time to compile, and use only a small portion of it
Yes.
to make this determination. I just wanted to point that out for anybody who might have missed it.
2 years later.
Yeah, 2 years later.
We got right on.
It's the same group of people that are leading the technology overhaul of the state educational system.
Yes.
Very
Okay.
inspiring.
On to the CMT and CAP test results. Also included in your packet are the 2013 CMT and CAP test scores. This is the format in which it was passed down to the administration from the state. 3 pages, 4 pages. Okay. Does anyone have any questions on these reporting of the CMT and CAP?
I would just, for a future meeting, can you see the cohorts data?
You don't have that.
No, but for a future
Yes,
meeting.
this was all that was passed down to us so far is the totals.
Right.
When we get the breakdowns, we'll definitely bring them on.
I don't see comparing different students how that shows
In
us.
fact, you can't follow my grade level. So, okay, moving on. Torrington High School. Oh, the next one is the Torrington High School football field and track grant. For those of you that may have seen a press release that was sent out into the newspapers, it alarmed me. I've been on the board for 4 years, chairman for 2. I've seen 9 years worth of 5-year capital plans. I've never seen any field or track improvements brought forward in any of those capital plans, but there's a group who has applied for a grant in 2009 that the state has pushed through under the Department of Energy and Environmental Protection. And Torrington apparently has been awarded, which I've asked for a copy of the grant now from all of our state legislators, from the person who wrote the grant, from DEEP, and no one so far has been willing to give me a copy of the grant.
Really.
So, I can't
So
speak.
this was all done under grant.
It was actually done by
No,
a feasibility.
superintendent or
It started under our interim superintendent, Mr. Aaron, back in 2007. Actually, it started before he was interim superintendent. He was on a feasibility study group for the track and field improvements. Then when he became interim superintendent, it was revisited and numbers were put together by the facilities department. And then under Mr. Leone, there was a agreement between Torrington Youth Soccer and the Torrington Board of Education to split the cost of a feasibility study for turning our field into AstroTurf. I have received all the documents from the feasibility study and the renderings, but I don't know if that's actually what was put into the grant. I don't know the limits of the grant. Based on the renderings and my personal, I ran some numbers. I had Danielle get me some numbers over the past couple of days. Educational cost sharing was frozen in 2009. Torrington is behind if you take our average from the 6 years prior to that. We're $4.7 million down on our educational cost sharing money. We've laid off 75 teaching positions. And the first $2.7 million the state can dig up is for an AstroTurf field. I find it to be completely against everything that education should be for. We should be looking to expand our classroom programs, but instead we're going to take care of one field, not all of our fields. And
can we get clarification on how that decision?
I'd like to at least see the grant. I've asked everybody and I've been told no. It's actually, all the paperwork is actually addressed to Mr. Aram's house. Nothing was ever addressed to the district. The grant is actually going to Mr. Aaron's house.
He's gonna sell an AstroTurf these days.
So, I mean, there's no record within the district of this actually ever being submitted. So it was submitted by,
It wasn't submitted by the district.
it was submitted by an outside group.
At some point, this has to come before the board for approval, is that all?
That's what I'm trying to get to, but
This
the
is our
groups
school
are telling me
district.
that I
The
have
state
no,
cannot tell us.
they're telling us we have no say. And I said, well, if you're gonna come tear our field out, I think we ought to know about it. At least to reschedule the gym class.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
What's really weird is that no politician is taking credit for this.
Oh, yes, they did. There was a press release and an article run in both local newspapers from one of our state legislators,
Oh,
who was also not willing to give me a copy of the grant.
I didn't understand that that was how the press release.
That's how I found out about it. The newspapers called me and asked me what I thought about the new field, and I said, well, I felt really stupid. I mean, I did that all on my own, but they really helped me on this.
I think the board deserves a formal presentation, a letter from the board. Somebody from the state has got to sit here and tell us what the hell is going on. Please, you can put it in those words as far as I'm concerned.
I was a little more colorful in my last conversation. I had my contractor voice on because I was irritated. The problem is the person who's handling our case has been deployed to Idaho to help the Department of Environmental Protection fight forest fires.
You're making this up.
I can't make this stuff up, man. You can't. I have the email if you'd like to read it, because this person will be back on the 28th
Of August.
of August.
Right.
Because they were short, because they were short-staffed,
Sure, of
and
course.
he's helping relocate families from forest fires. They needed the first time. So, do you really want it?
I don't want, I just want to give you a little information. There is going to be a meeting of that committee.
Which committee, exactly which committee?
A self-appointed committee.
The committee was formed under Mr. Leone when he was here. Please get to the front.
Actually, it was formed in 2007 and has the same members. It was formed under Susan O'Brien.
Okay, I am sorry. And then Mr. Leone did forward meetings with the committee. I think the youth soccer was brought in by Chris at the time and everything. That's how they decided to do that feasibility study. They are having a meeting. I just want to make this short. They're having a meeting here next Wednesday. I can get the time for you.
It would have been nice of them to invite someone who has to be financially responsible for this.
Right. But once again, I haven't seen the grant either. I don't know who is responsible for it.
It's actually addressed to a person.
Okay. And I don't know if it's a city grant, once again, or a facility grant. Hopefully, the representative is going to be here to explain that. That was part of the deal.
His office says he flies in on the 28th, so
Okay.
if he makes it here for the 28th, I don't know.
We'll see what happens with that. That's as far as it's gone, as far as our department, even my own department.
I have actually asked the superintendent to have Torrington Public School personnel not go any further with this until the board has in front of us what they're expecting, what the impact to our school system, our district, and what financial obligations we end up with out of this. Because most grants only cover a portion of the field or of the building or whatever. So, I mean, are we going to be on the hook for a portion of this project? We don't know. I have no idea. So,
You want that in a formal motion from the board?
to have them not be involved?
No, that the Board of Education will not, what we say, will not move forward with this until we have a formal presentation by authorities responsible for this initiative. Something, I mean, somebody's got to come here and tell us what the hell's going on and what they expect from us and what this conceivably could cost us.
Right.
We still,
And
you
what
know,
the money
somehow
can be used
Torrington Board of Education should still be responsible for running the Torrington Public School District, period.
Well, the problem I have with it, in looking at the renderings that were done in the past, it replaces the track, the AstroTurf for the football varsity field.
All great stuff, but does this cost
But it
us?
doesn't do anything for your girls softball team who made it to the state championships this year, who don't even have dugouts or benches, or, you know, they sit on the ground. Your baseball team's in the same situation. If we're gonna improve the fields, we should improve all the fields. We shouldn't just, okay, this program, gets, you know, this golden nugget and everybody else, you know.
Does that have any kind of Title IX teeth to it?
Well, in looking at it, it might, because you're only gonna be benefiting, well, predominantly benefiting male sports,
So
not
this may come
females.
back to bite us with, we then have to pick up the
Why?
Title IX equivalency.
That's why I've asked them to give us a copy of the grant, so at least we can see what
Somebody's
it
gotta
is.
tell us what's going on here.
Like,
This is
we're-
ridiculous.
It's in DEEP's hands, sounds like I'm stuttering, but it is hands. It's in DEEP's hands, and I've asked that gentleman to send us back the approval and a copy of the grant so that we know what it's really written for.
Who in the city, who is the appropriate liaison between the Board of Education and the state? Is it the mayor, through the mayor?
It depends. I mean, this is being pushed by local legislators.
Project.
This project, unfortunately, when superintendents changed, this group continued to thrive, and the group submitted a grant.
Yeah, I remember, literally, I remember O'Brien, I mean, I was chairman when we looked to do what we wanted to do. I certainly wanted to, you know, improve the fields, and they did a study, cost study, and it was just too expensive. At that point, it was DOA, you know, we didn't go forward with it. There was no one.
And somewhere, someone submitted a grant.
Somebody picked it up and ran with it
To
subsequent to that. Wow. Well, it's great, if it's free money, we can build. We can do this without, I mean, it's terrific if we can do it without any additional cost. Let's
It's
find out.
costing somebody though, and if we can
Well-
get $2.7 million from the state, I'd love to see it go into,
Agreed.
you know,
Agreed.
some honors or college or courses here in the school versus,
iPads, yes, I know, I get it.
you know, technology or whatever. I
Technology,
mean,
I know, I get it.
we're, you know, when we did our last technology assessment to do these online testing, we were millions of dollars in the hole to try to meet that goal. I mean, if we can get money, let's put it towards
You know,
something that we're supposed to be here.
it's just
I
an
mean,
overall,
athletics
it's
is
just an
important.
overall perception by people that if a grant comes from the state or the federal government, it's free. It's not costing us anything, you know? If it's not coming out of local property tax, it's free, and it's just so hard to
These
get
grants
people-
came out of $1 billion of borrowed money. It was bonded money. So, yeah, it is. They bonded $1 billion to support
AstroTurf
us.
that the football coach might not even want. Is AstroTurf what everyone wants?
I watched the New England Patriots, and Mr. Kraft built a beautiful stadium, put AstroTurf in. He watched his prize quarterback's knee get torn apart when his cleat was stuck. Within 2 weeks, they had grass.
Yeah, and there's your lawsuit. You're
I
talking
mean,
about liability.
that was ripped right out at a huge cost.
Yeah.
So,
Do you know, Mr. Chair, was even our athletic, was any athletic director, was anybody from our sports, you know,
I don't know who
community
was in
involved
on
in
it.
this?
I don't know who was in on it. All I have is a copy of a feasibility study that I was able to find and a cost that ironically matched the amount of the grant that was in the newspaper. $2,737,001.25. I just found it crazy that, you know, again, having seen 9 years of 5-year plans, there's never been anything on it about an improvement to the field that I didn't know we were looking for. I'm sorry, I cut you off.
I don't understand how someone can apply for a grant to do something to the city's property that wasn't the city was part of that.
I don't know.
I think anybody from the community garden, that's something that's actually happening right now. Teacher applied for that. So you can apply for, I think anybody can apply for a grant, maybe ultimately it has to be signed off by the superintendent, but I think anybody can technically apply for it.
That's why we need a grant.
Right.
Mr.
Well, I
Chair,
mean,
before-
we're ultimately responsible for the maintenance of that field, and is the maintenance cost of that field going to be greater than the maintenance cost of, I mean,
Well, there's a valid question. Before we move on, is there a consensus of what we're asking our chairman and our superintendent to do? Mr. Chair, what are you proposing to do?
well,
with
I
this going forward?
actually have already, you know, again, because I was very frustrated that someone was changing something that the board should have been involved in, and I asked her to ask her staff to refrain from attending or participating in any more of these
Her, I'm
meetings.
sorry, her is.
The superintendent
Okay.
of the Torrington
Okay,
Public School
understood.
staff.
Yeah, okay.
From participating in any further in this until the board has an understanding of what this project is. And if it is in fact the direction that this board decides that we would like to go. I mean, that was kind of what I asked her, because
Makes sense to me.
I thought it was a little over the top that we don't know what's going on. Okay.
We're still, what are we, Ranger Torrington, athletic program philosophies, have we reached that?
No, we're the field
Wait a
and
minute.
track grant.
Wait a minute. Athletic handbook. Now we're into the THS athletic. You didn't let me cross it out on my list.
Okay.
Included, all right, just say, included in the handout is an athletic handbook. We have our athletic director here that was put together for us. Any questions, Mr. Nard?
Okay. Just one comment, which is on, pages aren't numbered, so it goes refrain. I assume they're talking about, obviously, the,
How far in are you?
1, 2, 3, 4, I think it's the 5th page.
You got
Bottom
it
of it
covered?
says, be a fan, not a fanatic.
What's the title of
He says, be a fan, not a fanatic.
Yeah, it's the 5th page.
Okay, it says that at the bottom of the page. Okay.
And it says refrain from the use of alcoholic beverages, drugs, and tobacco products. Refrain doesn't really seem to mean the same as prohibited. And I think that anyone who comes to view once they're on school grounds, be it as a fan, parent, whatever, I think it's just obvious they shouldn't have alcoholic beverages, drugs, or we're not positive about the tobacco products. I would like to have them not have tobacco products. But definitely the alcoholic beverages and drugs, I think the word refrain sounds like, well, we kind of like you not to do it, but if you do it, then, not really too obnoxious, we'll let you keep doing it. But I like the word prohibit.
I agree 100% with the tobacco as well. Do we have a policy that already states that?
Yeah, yes, we do.
All right, so I mean, this should reflect that
Should
policy.
reflect the policy, right.
Yes, sir.
And on that same page, I'm not sure that page follows from the page before. There
Yeah,
might have been a
I
mistake
don't
in
think it does
scanning,
either.
because there's a heading that's missing. Starting with release your children to the coach and team sounds like something Adolf Hitler would have suggested. Give your children to us. There's some statement of philosophy or
I actually think there's a page missing,
Yeah, at least.
because we go from game and schedule changes, which ends on, will sometimes occur last, to release your children to the coach on the team.
Yeah, and then the next page talks about amity, about having an official transcript, or some page a little further down, having your amity transcript mailed. I don't know, there's some confusion there someplace. Under NCAA eligibility, the page that starts with that, I may be further along. But
While I'm at it, the sentence that says, accept the results of each game, do not make excuses. I'm not really positive I want that to be anywhere documented, that we're now telling people to, this is how you have to accept the loss. It's like, hey, people take the games as they take them. They're not creating a criminal act of some type of public disturbance. I don't think we have the right to mandate that they're happy or they can't make excuses. It just,
Isn't that just identifying good sportsmanship?
what's that?
Isn't that just identifying good sportsmanship?
Yeah, but I'm not really positive what we're telling this.
Mike,
What's that?
do you have a copy of this with you?
Yes, I do.
Because I honestly think we're missing a couple of
Yeah,
pages here, which is
that's
why.
if that's where it goes from, then you do.
Yeah, because it just makes it not make sense. I'm assuming that's under student conduct.
It's
That bit would accept.
at the very end, you're missing that one page.
Do you have this one?
This is.
Yeah, we're missing that.
page. We don't have that page at all. This is this page, it's just a newspaper reference page.
That's what we mean.
Which will give us the counts on the.
Is there any way you can get copies of that page now?
Yeah.
Just so we have.
Cheryl's
it.
things.
Yeah, it would follow, make more sense. Who we're talking about. All right, well.
Yeah, again, I don't think we need to be telling parents whether or not they want to make excuses, just moving a word or two.
Okay.
It's not that important.
Chris?
Wondering if the academics that are cited in there are CIAC, are we required to follow that, or is that just the floor and we're allowed to say you have to do more than just pass with a 65?
How far in are
Your classes, I'm on page 25. On the iPad, I don't know what it is.
iPad, yeah,
Academics.
academics, yeah. It would have been nice to have page numbers.
Oh, academics, fall eligibility, winter eligibility?
Yeah.
That page? Okay.
Yeah.
Where does it say?
It says CIAC.
Right.
I'm just wondering, are we required to just comply with that? Are we restricted by that, or can we go above that?
Mike, I would assume the CIAC handbook is the
The
minimum
CIAC handbook
requirement.
is a manual that's given to all schools, and it has all of the bylaws, all of the rules and regulations of CIAC athletics. So we took pieces out of that. We worked on this since last fall to try and put this together. We got information from some of the schools we felt were model schools, some of the athletic directors who've been identified as being the top athletic directors in the state. Gathered information from them as far as pieces that we could use, that we could mold into what we needed. And that's what we went about doing.
But the question from Mr. Rivera was, the CIAC handbook sets the minimum standard that a school district would follow, correct?
The minimum standard, yes.
So we could have a stricter one if we so chose.
Exactly, yeah. Every school can make it their own as long as they follow the minimum standard of CIAC.
It's like state law versus federal. You can go to federal or you can go one higher.
Let's just see a discussion on increasing the academic requirements, then would be eligible.
Would this fall, and I just want to, Mr. Cavanero was asking back in the, oh, she knows where it's going. Back in the late spring to have a policy on athletics.
Yeah.
And their eligibility. So I think that the conversation you're having would be, at a policy level, does the policy committee want to craft something? Does the board want to set an athletic policy, or do we want to run through a code of conduct and a handbook similar to this? You know, the code of conduct that he's put together similar to the school code of conducts and handbooks that we pass out. I mean, we can always say we want to move this on, but where we're at right now is we have sports teams that start, I believe, on Friday.
And it doesn't be for this year, I think.
Right.
Just the
Well, I agree.
discussion worth having.
Yeah.
Whether or not we're comfortable with the absolute bare minimum.
Yep. But I think that goes back to Paul's conversation in the spring of looking deeper into what our expectations are of our student athletes. Yes.
Do we have any other information that we hand out to parents that says there's a minimum? Is this the only, is the athletic handbook the only thing that states what the requirements are to be able to participate in any extracurricular?
The problem is, prior to this year, prior to Mr. McKenna undertaking this, each sport had their own code of conduct, written or unwritten, that they followed. There wasn't a standardized, so the intent here through the athletic department was to create a standard so that all sports and all Torrington Public School athletes will have the same benchmark and the same requirements. So this right now is the only thing that we have. Is that a fair statement?
Yeah, it was very ambiguous as far as a department, what actions fell under review by the school, and it was left up to each individual coach to have his rules. So we made this the basis of what coaches can have stricter rules than what we have. We can, you know, our rules say that if a student has detention for the day, he serves the detention and then can go to his practice or game after serving the detention. The coach can have a rule that says if you have detention, you don't practice or play that day. The coach's rules are reviewed by myself and will be reviewed also by the Director of Secondary Education as we get rolling here in the next week.
Yep. And that would go along with what your thoughts were on having a board.
Yeah, I'm wondering, once again, is there, I think this is definitely very much in the right direction. I like the mission statement. But I'm still concerned about going all the way back to what initiated this whole conversation, the events from last year. Do you believe that this has the teeth? What I'm looking for is something that says to coach or to students that when they sign on to play athletics, you do something that literally rises to the level of getting arrested, you're gone. And until you can prove that you're innocent, you're gone. And I'd still like to see that.
Well, we do have that in there, that things that rise to that level will be brought to, the administration will be brought, we've determined that an athletic review committee, which would be a member of administration, the athletic director, and a coach that's not coaching the athlete, a head coach that's not part of coaching the athlete, as well as a member of the faculty, a non-coaching member of the faculty, will sit and determine what the level of punishment would be.
And I want to know if this board was interested. I understand that. I understand that. I always look at these things again as how they play out in the future with other people, not you, not me, not anybody here. How effective this particular statute is in addressing the issues that were raised last school year. And to me, with all due respect, you get a star athlete who pushes these to the limits. There's nothing in here that says this review board has to kick those kids off the team.
No, there's nothing that says that, and there's nothing that says that we don't get the right to kick them off.
Right.
We have the ability to be able to do the punishment that we feel is deserved at that time. And
right, but again, that gets me to a coach whose job may be on the line, who's underperforming, who's got a star athlete, who may be compromised in his or her ability.
well, the coach won't have any say in the matter whatsoever. That goes before the athletic review board.
I know, but in the
Takes
real
it out of
world,
the coach's
coaches are
hands.
friends with other coaches.
Yeah, but I think you're calling into question then the professional conduct of the people who are going to be making that review, and I think that's a strong, way to go. I think that the people who are going to make it.
With all due respect, sir, I think the professional conduct of the people who are in a position to make this review was tested and measured a year ago and found to be incredibly lacking in Torrington. Okay? Incredibly lacking. And I'm trying to get this Board of Education to get their head around that and take those discretionary powers out of the hands of those very same people who were found lacking in good judgment, sir.
All right, so the question, hang on one second, Mike, if you don't mind. The question from Mr. Cavanero is the handbook, oh, is this a new complete one? Okay. That the handbook is a great starting point, but does this board want to go further with establishing a policy governing student conduct and extracurricular activities? It was a discussion we had in the late spring. It seemed to have some movement, and then it was going to go to policy, I believe.
Right, but the athletic director was first going to.
Right, we're going to put this together so that we could.
And then we'll,
Okay.
within the policy committee.
My friend, I was wishing to get this from Gene, I'm sorry it took this
Well,
long.
Can I, since we have parents, citizens on this advisory committee.
Excuse me?
There's parents, citizens, administrators on this advisory.
Which
committee.
parents?
I don't
Parents
know,
of fellow,
Advisory
parents,
committee.
parents of fellow athletes who
but I'm wondering
are
if there shouldn't
thinking.
be a board member if there's someone from every other group.
I did ask the board member they come to meetings, and no one ever came, so
Would you ask?
I gave it to the superintendent to put it out there. I don't have access to your phone number, so I
The
can't call you.
easiest thing to do, if you're on your city or your school website, if you type in BOE, it goes to all of them.
Okay,
And so the Torrington Board of Ed hits all of us that are at the table. When an election happens, the new people that come in, it just goes, just so you know. I didn't know it either, because I used to list them all until somebody showed me. Not that bad,
One question is, I don't see anything in here talking about arrest, i.e. whether or not the person's put in the system.
There is something about federal and state statutes, or there is something in there.
Where is that?
Have these already been printed, Mike?
No, they haven't.
It's under civic
Civic
responsibilities.
responsibilities, yes. So very last page, the last italicized paragraph. Any behavior which casts an adverse, is that the one you found?
Civic?
Yeah,
That's,
cast an adverse reflection on our athletic program and/or school, and/or violates the laws of the local, state, or federal governments will come under further review by school administration and the athletic review board.
With all due respect, that's
Which
what I'm
is
fine
in
by.
the student
Well,
athlete agreement.
but I would like to ask, okay, Mr.
That's why
McKenna,
it's not.
in the, you have referenced throughout here some things that if you could sit down with our new HR/policy guru, I know he's up on all. I don't mind we call you up to the table.
Oh, thanks, Ken.
No problem. There's, like the drug, alcohol, and tobacco, we have a policy.
Yep.
If you could just cite in this paragraph, per Torrington Board of Education policy number, so that this is this is an introduction to it, but that they should go to that policy for full, just so that you're covered, because when we redo the policies every year, or every couple of years as new requirements come down from the state, we automatically update our policy to say including all revisions. So it would just cover you going down, the same thing with hazing, the same thing with social media. It would cover a lot of it for you, and then these would be basically guidelines, like a summary of, but go see the board policy based on this. And I think that going forward from this with Paul, I can see his consternation over there, trying to get my 50-cent words in, is this is a good start to get us moving this year, but we should move this to a conversation of, does the board want to go further and craft a policy to encompass?
The board wants to go policy, then I'll go to the policy. Because damn it, there should be something in writing from the Torrington Board of Education. Some student athletes get arrested for raping 13-year-old girls. There should be some mechanism that says you're off the team. It shouldn't take a damn discussion.
Well, I think it should be,
but
And evaluation and
I
review.
think it should go
on
further
every
than that.
felony and what level?
No, we can say, arrested for felonies. Yeah, hella, yes, every felony. Rape, assault, battery. Yeah, all those things. I don't want those kids on the athletic team. They don't represent Torrington.
But they
should
won't be
represent
on the
young
athletic
athletes.
team. They will be removed.
But Paul, to carry your thought a step further, it should include all extracurriculars. It should include drama, band, not just athletics. It
Fine, you
should
want to do that
be-
through policy, let's do it through policy, damn it.
You know what I'm saying? I mean,
Yeah,
it should
fine.
cover everything.
I
Because
agree.
if a kid gets arrested for that, they should be
Yeah,
banned
that's
from all of their extracurriculars
Right, fine.
for representing the schools.
I'll buy that. Then can we accelerate that through, get that done, Ms. Hona? Can we get that in front of the policy committee ASAP?
I would
So we
like to
get-
formally ask then, so that it gets referred, that we ask the policy committee to deliberate on the Torrington Board of Education crafting a policy related to co-curricular and extracurricular activities in terms of eligibility, discipline, and evaluation and that type of thing, related to this.
Can we get a second for that?
We have that.
We have,
We have an extracurricular policy already.
but I think,
Covering-
I think they want to look at or expand that policy to cover more than it does. Okay. Do we have consensus of the board to move this to policy? I got 2 yeses over there. John, do you agree with this?
Expedition or expedite.
With all deliberate speed.
Well, I'm just thinking, we have other things we're doing now that I wouldn't want to drop to do this.
We have a general handbook to start the athletic school year with.
Okay,
And I
so,
would say that if we get it within the next few
That's
months,
fine.
just not dragging out for
yeah,
a year.
that's
right?
fine. Then let's,
I mean,
that's fine, that's fine.
I don't want to interrupt Ms. Holmes, Mrs. Holmes.
So,
I just divorced you.
Large agenda.
that's fine.
Yes, I'm sorry.
Like
Her agenda,
agenda.
yes.
There's a conflict with the way that it's worded in our own internal policies now as far as academic eligibility. So it just asks, again, maybe when, like, you're working with Joe to cite it, because it's my understanding, and I want to make sure that this is not getting used to the detriment, is you need a 70 for the extracurricular.
Right.
Right. But this is saying that you just need to pass. So there's a conflict there.
I think the 70 is probably a holdover from when 70 was passing at Torrington High School.
But that's the policy we have in place, so I don't know which one we're going, but.
The problem is, again, just like the other, just like the federal or CIAC or whatever, if you can just, you reference the CIAC and school policy number, it just
This
covers.
was submitted for review, so.
Right, no, this is only a recommendation
I know,
that
and
will help you.
and I did submit it for review, and it came back to me as being all set as far as school policy goes.
We're a little bit more difficult to get along
Is
with. I don't know if
CIA
you know that.
passing 65 or 70?
65 is passing.
Or CIA?
CIAC it depends on the school's policy. If the school policy is 70 is passing, and you don't reach a passing grade, the school does not give you credit for that class. Whether it could be a 90 as your passing grade. If you don't receive credit for the class, you don't get the eligibility. So the CIAC does not set a grade number. It sets passing. And the school district comes up with what passing is for that particular district.
So we may compete with different schools
Absolutely.
that have.
Waterbury, I don't know what they are. For a long time, Waterbury was 60 was passing. I don't know what it is now, but for a long time it was 60.
But no state standard.
And there's no state standard for what passing is. That's up to the individual school district to determine what passing is. The CIAC says you have to have 4 credits at the end of the school year to be eligible for the fall, and you must pass 4 Carnegie units each.
Well, can we as a school district say that if we're going to compete with another school in any athletic competition, that we want that same academic standard that our school, that we're only going to compete with those schools that have the same academic standards that we have? I mean, which is pretty minimal to start with. What?
That's, I mean, you don't get to determine that. Each school gets to determine what they're going to
No,
use.
but we get to determine whether or not our kids want to be playing, kids
We would
that
have to
show up 3 days.
You'd have to pull out of the NDL, you'd have to become Notre Dame. You'd have to
The
create your
Naugatuck
own
Valley
district.
League, every school in the Naugatuck Valley League uses the CIAC rule as their rule for their
Which is
for their
passing.
eligibility. Is passing for,
So there's no standard, is what you're telling me.
The minimum
That's the
requirement
standard.
for.
that's the
The
standard.
standard is passing, but passing there
passing-
would be 50, and
Right.
passing here is
Right.
70.
It's passing
We
according
just
to what the
had,
school
we just
district.
had an hour conversation about the state getting too deeply into what we do, and now you're upset that
No,
you're
no,
not
I'm-
getting deeply into what we do.
No, but I'm saying
We're
is
signing
we have a
the paper,
choice to determine what schools are.
If you want to pull out of the NDL, the NDL was made up of certain teams. You either play in the NDL or you don't.
I understand. Now, I'm
So-
Play
saying,
in the league.
You would have to become Notre Dame, and then you handpick who you want to play, and then hopefully you make it somewhere in the end.
that's what an elite school does.
Yes, that is.
So when we have our meeting, Mike, will you
Yeah.
attend?
Okay, Mrs. Capabianchi has it.
I just have a question, concern on a policy hypothetically. We would have to address athletes that have incidents on non-sport time. Hypothetically, if you had an incident in March and an athlete had played his last game on Thanksgiving, how do you then suspend that athlete from playing football when it's not football season?
Well, I think that,
So the question is, I mean, how do you, so what time is it? If you get arrested, are you done with athletes?
well, that was my
in high
comment
school,
to,
Or,
Well, that's what we
my
need
comment to Paul's thing was, instead of addressing it as an athlete, you're just addressing it as a Torrington Public School student, eligible for any extracurricular or co-curricular, what's the right word?
Yes.
Activity, any. So if you're found guilty of something and it's hypothetically March, and your sport doesn't start up again until August, you're still on that non-eligible list because you are not a Torrington Public School student eligible for co-curricular or extracurricular
found
activities.
guilty or charged?
That's the discussion.
In the policy committee.
Right, but I'm saying, instead of saying, you know, so now you're getting rid of the, whether you're in, I just lost the word, in season or out of season, you're talking about all activities as a whole. So that the person can't go join the band, or can't go to a play, or can't go to, you know, you're making it broader. I think it's unfair to just single out just athletics.
No, I absolutely agree. No argument about that.
So I think that takes away whether they're in season or out of season. If someone is found to not meet that standard, they're out for whatever term is in the policy.
But there has to be a term in the policy.
Yeah, 1 year, 2 years, whatever. Okay, thank you, Mr.